It is no secret, at least if you're watching Rising, that cable news ratings have plummeted since Trump left office. It appears CNN in particular has taken a massive hit. After averaging nearly 2.2 million viewers in the first 3 weeks of 2021, the network has, quote, averaged just 1 million viewers since Biden took office. That is a staggering decline of 54%.
Democratic strategist Andrew Feldman, co-host of the Realigned podcast, Marshall Kosloff, they join us now to discuss. Marshall, what do you make of these drops? So part of it definitely is just post-election coverage, but a 60% drop is so precipitous and so now long-standing that it seems to be something unique about the Biden era in particular. And look, I'm celebrating this in the way that I think all people should watch less of all cable news, and they're probably better off from that perspective. What do you make of it?
It just speaks to the fact that, so two things are happening. One, it was definitely true that there was going to be a decline no matter what happened. And that had nothing to do with Trump, that had nothing to do with Biden. This is the way it works. I'm sure the collapse in ratings between 2004 and 2005, 2009 and 2010, that's definitely a thing that's going to happen no matter what. But you do just see something difficult for the cable news industry in that right now, I just think there's such a huge exhaustion in this country from news, from events, from the past year of COVID, that it's just unclear to me that people are just rushing to go back under that space. It's just unclear that there are these big stories that, I mean, we were actually talking about this offline. Something that's been fascinating me, stories have been lasting longer and longer and longer. So during the Trump era, a controversy would go, think of Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss went on for like 5 days versus in the Trump era, that's like an afternoon. So it's just funny to see people trying to wring whatever's left from all
like bringing the last drips.
Yeah, sometimes it's good if it's an important, like maybe the Cuomo story would be a positive example of remaining focused on what's going on there, and a negative example would be hanging on to Dr. Seuss for like weeks at a time. Andrew, what do you make of this trend? And by the way, I want to say this is a Fox News report. Of course, they delight in this. They had their massive drop
they got their
right
own
after the election, and were getting beaten by like Newsmax and whatever. So they're not doing amazing over there either. And the position of this show is we cheer for all of them to fail.
Yeah, I think you have a bit of a perfect storm going on here, guys, with the combination of the post-Trump era and also the combination of the pandemic, loosening up a bit and people being able to get out of their homes and go back to some of the things that they were doing a year, 14 months ago or so. And I think that is the perfect storm we're looking at. And also, I think there are a lot of different platforms, whether it's a program like this or others, more and more, Jon Stewart's show on Apple TV is in the works. I mean, so there are just so many alternatives now that's what I think we're running to. But ultimately, I think it's a perfect storm of the Trump era ending along with the pandemic loosening its grip, as well as people being in their homes.
Yeah, I'm curious, Marshall, from your perspective, because one of the things that we saw in 2016 to 2020 is that political news was the top news of the day, pretty much regardless of where you were in the country. Now, in the Obama era, it was pretty much the opposite. Cultural news dominated, and if you were checking and seeing, if you want to see the rise of Trump, you could basically go and look at Breitbart.com. All of that was going on 2012, 2013, which was totally missed by politics. So it's not necessarily that news wasn't being consumed. It's just a different type of news. What does that look like right now? As in, like, what are people tuning into, and how will that influence our politics maybe a year or 2 years down the line?
I mean, it looks like Stanley Tucci crushing it on Sunday nights on CNN. I don't know if people saw this, and I don't subscribe to cable, but Stanley Tucci has a Italy travel show, but actually had amazing ratings. It means that, and this is where you see that there are some business executives in New York who are desperately trying to figure this out. It means, like you said, it's not that people don't want to watch things. It's really cool that we have access to YouTube and to cable and all these things 24 hours a day, is that they're going to look for different things. So like, I think travel porn featuring Stanley Tucci is exactly what people are going to want to see after they've been locked up for the past year. So I think in a year or two, we're going to see a situation where, because the midterms are going to be back and because you're going to see the revving up of the presidential campaign, especially pretty early this time, given that where Trump is or not, you're going to definitely see those ratings come back, I think, because Trump is just going to want to get back into things. He's going to want to get his platform back. So we're really just going to have to go through this go through as if that's a bad thing. Most of us are going to enjoy this 2-year period where we don't have to focus on this as much. But I could entirely see all of that changing after the midterms.
Marshall, and then Andrew, I'm curious, and Marshall, you maybe kind of hit on what your advice would be, but if you're advising CNN and you actually wanted them to succeed, like what would you tell them to do? Because in the past, they were a little bit more insulated from who was in the White House and which political party was up and which was down, because they were like the hard news channel. And so if there was a cruise ship that was stuck or there was an airplane that was missing, you know, they were able to make a lot out of just like those kinds of news interest stories. But I think because they so clearly joined the like anti-Trump and became very partisan in their coverage, it's been a lot harder for them after Trump is out of office, defeated, and Biden comes in. So what would you advise them to do?
I mean, the whole thing that we're talking about here is there's CNN, the brand, and then there's like the idea of what cable news is. CNN, the brand, has to move beyond cable. I don't watch cable. People in all of our age like demographics like don't watch cable news. So that means going into podcasting. That means like leveraging the strengths they have in a different context. Because I just think there's only so much that you could do here. People love the news. Like that's the thing. That's why people are tuning in to watch Rising right now. People love the news. People want to know what's going on. The question is, do they want to see this very specific type of story, which is hyper political, and do they want to watch it at 8 p.m. on cable when it's a Thursday night and everyone's trying to go out and do things? Not in any way whatsoever. So what these things have to do is get good at what they do, which is program. They have to program content and use formats that actually meet people where they are and where they're trying to go.
Yeah.
What do you think, Andrew?
Look, I think meeting people where they are is absolutely right, and the formats are critical. But I also think, look, we need to have more unique stories. Everything is not necessarily breaking news, and that is CNN every day, every hour. There's the breaking news chyron. So I think you should absolutely diversify not only who's on air in terms of your guests, but the types of stories. But I got to tell you, I was watching, and I still have cable. I'm probably one of the few in my generation. But I was watching Don Lemon the other night, and he interviewed the aunt of Dante Reich. And that interview was just extremely not only heart-wrenching, but really powerful. And I wish more people got to see it, because the 800,000 people watching Don Lemon at 11 o'clock that night were, not the only people that should see this interview. It was tremendously powerful in really highlighting what was so wrong with that murder.
Yeah, cable can be great at times. Live in particular is what they're really good at. You are right, though. One of my favorite things that Fox does is when they're like, it's Fox News Alert. It's 11 p.m. here on the West Coast.
Breaking news.
I'm like, what?
It's Monday.
Doesn't make any sense. It's like that ding song. It's 11 p.m.
Also, breaking news, something that happened a day ago is still breaking news.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything's always breaking. It's an amazing thing. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your very smart
Great to see you
analysis.
both. Thank you.
Thanks.
We're rising for you after this.